take a few minutes and visit our website at the Battle of Gettysburg Podcast.com to shop, buy some new merch, check in on our upcoming events, and of course, buy Civil War books from one of your favorite podcasters.
Hi everyone, Jim Hessler, Battle of Gettysburg Podcast. Welcome to this very special lights, camera, action edition of the Battle of Gettysburg Podcast. Over the extended weekend of October 9th through 14th, 2025, our quaint, peaceful little historic town of Gettysburg was briefly transformed again into a Hollywood movie set. Baltimore Street, basically our busiest street in the historic borough in town, Baltimore Street was closed off for several blocks due to a movie project that temporarily once again transformed Gettysburg back to the 1860s. Now, the movie being filmed here, which at the time of my recording is tentatively titled Gettysburg 1863, is directed once again by actor Bo Brinkman, who every good Gettysburg enthusiast knows played Walter Taylor in the 1993 movie Gettysburg. It is, as I understand it, a fictional story of a family taking place in late 1863, which would include the Battle of Gettysburg and Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Now, before we go any further, I want to make it clear we have no affiliation with the film or the Gettysburg Film Commission in any way, other than the fact that we fully support it. We think it's a great idea. We love what the Gettysburg Film Commission is doing for our town, and we look forward with everyone else to seeing the finished product. During filming, particularly on Saturday, October 11th and Sunday, October 12th, Baltimore Street in town was blocked off. However, local residents, including my wife Michelle, were given the opportunity to come, sit, and watch some of the filming. Well, as you can often imagine in the Civil War community, this set off a firestorm of commentary on that historical forum known as Facebook and social media. And as pictures and video of the filming went live, all kinds of comments from so-called experts saying, why are there two double yellow lines in the street? Why can I see power lines? And most infamously, why can we see an air conditioning unit in a building? Now, one of the reasons why I agree to do the Battle of Gettysburg podcast is because I know our audience is the smartest one out there, and I know our audience would not be making comments like that. Folks, through Hollywood movie magic, we have little doubt that things like air conditioning units will either be digitally removed or simply left off camera. But nevertheless, members of the general public kind of had a field day, and frankly, here on Monday, October 13th, 2025, a lot of us in the town of Gettysburg and in the history community are getting a good laugh over all of the hullabaloo that this caused. So we thought we would do two things. One, we would show you my wife Michelle's video from the set. It's a few short clips, which hopefully you'll enjoy. Get to see a little bit how movies are made. But two, it gave me the idea to why don't we use this opportunity to talk a little bit about what did happen on Baltimore Street, both during the Battle of Gettysburg and during the Lincoln procession. So that's what we're going to do on this very special episode of the Battle of Gettysburg podcast as we, along with the rest of Gettysburg, go to Hollywood for a few days.
Got nothing. Move on.
Hold it!
Move on.
Hold the line!
Take a hit. Move on.
Fall back!
You got
Fall
it.
back!
There you go.
Grab the piece! Go! Let's get one last shot on, boys! Save yourself! We're gonna be overrun! Go run! Get out of here! Save yourself! Cut!
Okay, in that first clip, we are clearly watching defeated Union soldiers retreating through the town, south along Baltimore Street, and hopefully towards eventual refuge and rallying on Cemetery Hill. Now, in reality, July 1st, 1863, it would have been somewhere about 4 o'clock. The Union Army's 1st Corps and 11th Corps, after fighting all day in the fields northwest and north of town, have been defeated. They're getting pushed back through Gettysburg itself. Now, there has always been great debate amongst historians in terms of whether or not this was a panicked or orderly retreat, and as you can imagine, accounts varied. I tend to side with accounts that suggest, for the most part, it was an orderly withdrawal through the town, in that you would have had the troops primarily moving along the sidewalks, while wagons and cannons and such would have been using the streets to get down to Cemetery Hill. However, I want to emphasize that I think in most cases, regimental formations were primarily broken up, as in many cases, guys had gotten separated from their units in these narrow streets. On maps, Gettysburg can appear to be a town of neatly aligned parallel streets, but in reality, there's a lot of back alleys and side streets in town that can form dead ends and just would have been very narrow for troops to navigate through. So as you can imagine, accounts say that the streets and alleys were soon, quote, crowded with vehicles of every description. That would have caused many Union soldiers to break away down these various alleys to find ways of escape in any means possible. One account described leaping fences, crossing gardens, or passing through shops and dwellings to avoid capture. Now, on Baltimore Street, very near where the filming is occurring, Union General Alexander Schimmelpfennig was able to barely avoid capture by the Confederates when he hopped a fence and ended up in the yard of Henry and Catherine Garlock. Cut off from the rest of his troops, General Schimmelpfennig hid behind a stack of firewood and a hog's slop barrel near the kitchen's woodshed, and he was discovered by Mrs. Garlock when she came out to feed the family hogs. And from that point, General Schimmelpfennig hid for the next several days while the town was occupied by the Confederate soldiers, and Mrs. Garlock continued to pretend to feed the hogs while she gave the general food and water. So some people sarcastically refer to the area of the Garlock's hog slop as General Schimmelpfennig's headquarters. Don't know if we're going to see that in the movie, but it's a very well-known story. Young Anna Garlock watched these blue troops pouring down Baltimore Street in front of the house. She later said that the street was so crowded with men that she thought she could have crossed the street just by stepping on men's heads, which of course she didn't actually do. Some might wonder, and I think did comment, on whether or not the scenes of Union soldiers shooting and being shot down in the streets of the town was accurate. Well, it did happen. A block over on Washington Street, Catherine Foster saw Union soldiers hurrying along the street as they were pursued by Confederates. Bullets were whizzing by, and the men were ducking into every quote-unquote nook and corner. 3 men, at least one of which was from the 6th Wisconsin of the Iron Brigade, were scurrying along a side street a block or so away from Baltimore Street when a number of rebels demanded their surrender. The Union soldiers continued to run and the Confederates shot at them. One of the mini balls passed by one of the men, but hit the Wisconsin fella in the back of the head. It was said that the sound of the bullet striking the man's skull cracked like a pistol shot as the man fell, and his comrades could see the man's brains oozing out onto the street and the sidewalk. Union soldiers said that he could see a rebel loading his rifle and giving him a quote-unquote ferocious look as he loaded, presumably to take another shot. So yes, there are plenty of stories of this. There was fighting in the streets, and men were shot down. And next, you might be wondering about the Union cannon that was in the clip as well, as they were depicted retreating through the town. Yes, Union artillery from the 1st Corps and the 11th Corps did retreat through the streets of Gettysburg. We have an account from local civilian Albertus McCreary, who said while looking out from his basement window at Baltimore and High Streets, again, not far away from where they were filming, McCreary said that he saw a Union artillery piece fire down Baltimore Street toward the town square and that it made much dust and noise. Let's take a look at our next clip. We have what would appear to be victorious Confederates, again, moving in the same direction on Baltimore Street and pursuing their defeated Northern opponents. Now, I'm told this is the famed Liberty Rifles reenactor unit, and they give out a hell of a rebel yell, which you're going to enjoy listening to. The other thing, too, as you look at the sky, you will note that our filming has moved into the evening. This was a very long day for everyone involved. And according to my wife, it took some time to set the explosive on the window, which you will see at some point. Apparently, the heroine of our story is looking out her window when that explosive shell goes off. Does she live? Is she okay? We're going to have to see the movie when it comes out to find out. Wow, I think I'm going to play that rebel yell again just because I liked it so much. A banshee squall, as I think Shelby Foote said. Okay, but how would that compare to what actually happened? Well, one of the problems is that the narrow streets that we talked about, which were creating confusion on the Union retreat, also stalled the Confederate advance through town. And it's one of the main reasons why General Richard Ewell and his 2nd Corps troops were unable to mount an effective assault against Cemetery Hill at this hour. So I don't know if we saw the lines of infantry kind of passing through the streets as we did in the video. But again, it looked pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing it on the screen. But again, we do know there was action and there was combat. In addition to some of the stories I told earlier, a few blocks away at Christ Lutheran Church, Chaplain Horatio Howell of the 90th Pennsylvania was tending to some wounded soldiers at the church when the street noise drew Howell out from the church and onto the large stairs in front. Accounts after that vary in detail, but essentially Southern soldiers shot Chaplain Howell dead. A few blocks away near the corner of Washington and High Street, where we heard from Catherine Foster earlier, members of the 150th Pennsylvania exchanged some gunfire with North Carolinians from Ramser's brigade of Robert Rhodes' division. A corporal was killed while carrying the 150th's flag. Lieutenant Frank Harney of the 14th North Carolina captured the 150th flag before he too was mortally wounded. So clearly bullets are flying in both directions. As Harney's dying wish, he requested that the captured colors would be sent to Confederate President Jefferson Davis. And old Jeff Davis confirmed a few weeks later that the flag was in his possession and will be treasured by me as an honorable memento of the valor and patriotism and devotion which the soldiers of North Carolina have displayed. That flag remained with Davis throughout the rest of the war and was among his personal belongings when he was captured in 1865 at the end of the war. And last but not least, one more story is the 45th New York in the 11th Corps withdrew towards Cemetery Hill. They found their route blocked on Washington Street, so they were cutting through some alleys off of Chambersburg Street. Captain Francis Ersch and 4 companies in the regiment's rear took shelter in buildings opposite the church, and they intended to fight it out. They held out in the buildings until about 5:30 p.m. when Confederates convinced Ersch the town was in their possession and induced him to surrender. I think what we saw on screen, if only briefly, certainly captures the spirit of the fighting in town during the late afternoon and early evening hours of July 1st. Yes, I did boost the audio gain on that last round of the Rebel Yell. Hope it didn't scare your dogs. Okay, last but not least, they also filmed the procession to the National Cemetery and Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Now again, Hollywood magic, they filmed some of this out of order, so the Rebel attack was actually the last one of the day, but I put this in order of sort of historical sequencing. You have the battle in July of 63, the address, of course, in November of 63. So let's see what we got. And I do want to point out, too, for some of the photos in this segment, our good friend, super fan, Beth Wheeler contributed some of the photos. Beth was an extra in some of these scenes as a living historian, and we thank Beth for some photos and video. And of course, this is the image, the procession, Lincoln headed toward the dedication of the National Cemetery that the filmmakers are recreating here. Of course, among the many humorous comments from social media followers over the weekend was people who were saying, the Battle of Gettysburg was in July. Why are these people dressed for cold weather? Well, of course, as any viewer of the Battle of Gettysburg podcast knows, the Gettysburg Address took place in November 19th, 1863, so of course the dress is appropriate. Citizens of Gettysburg left many accounts, many descriptions of the procession. I'm just going to make a few comments here. Things were delayed a little bit getting started that morning. Eventually, about 11 o'clock, the procession to the Soldiers' National Cemetery finally started. According to Liberty Hollinger, quote, "The band began to play and Mr. Lincoln's horse became excited and pranced around quite lively. It seemed to amuse the president, and then that sober, sad-faced man actually smiled." So despite the solemn occasion, the atmosphere was kind of festive. There was a color guard that led the way down Baltimore Street, then came a band, then followed by military participants in their dress attire. Lincoln then appeared, accompanied by several other dignitaries. J. Howard Wirt remembered that Lincoln's face became, quote, "illuminated with smiles," and that the president bowed continuously to acknowledge the cheers. Annie Scully recalled seeing Lincoln opposite the Adams County Courthouse. Quote, "He would turn from side to side, looking at the people on either side when he passed. He looked rather odd on such a small horse." From here, the film crew took a break on Baltimore Street to basically reset the street for some of the action shots that came later. They, meanwhile, went to Flores Lutheran Church Cemetery, which is located in Franklin Township between McKnightstown and Cashtown. It's a really cool old cemetery and totally appropriate for the scenery here. Now, some people inquired, why didn't they just film the Gettysburg Address on the actual site? Well, there's a whole host of reasons why you couldn't and shouldn't film in the National Cemetery, and of course the filmmakers didn't do that. But as historians, we also want to remember that the actual Gettysburg Address, the speaker's platform, was almost certainly on the grounds of what was and is the local Evergreen Cemetery, which is privately owned. Evergreen Cemetery is a beautiful cemetery today in its own right, but in trying to recreate the 1860s appearance of an old cemetery, I think the filmmakers made a great choice in going out to Flores Church, which, by the way, has been used in motion pictures before, such as Gettysburg.
Take a few minutes and visit our website at the Battle of Gettysburg Podcast.com to shop, buy some new merch, check in on our upcoming events, and of course, buy Civil War books from one of your favorite podcasters.
And that's a wrap, as they say in Hollywood and in Gettysburg. I just want to be clear in closing, we did not plan on doing anything here on the podcast related to the filming of this movie, but there was too much fun with the social media commentary and the air conditioning unit. So hopefully, as you've seen here in our video, this production is going to be much, much more than that. Once again, we have no affiliation with the movie in any way, but we send our best wishes and good luck to Bo Brinkman, Chris Webb, and the Gettysburg Film Commission on completing this picture, and we look forward to seeing it along with everyone else. That concludes this episode of the Battle of Gettysburg podcast, and we'll see you on the battlefield and maybe at the movies.